Hello friends, my name's TheRealEmile and welcome back to some more Forza Top Gear laps. Now I do want to quickly apologise for the fact that this wasn't up on Monday. Just had a couple of things to do and it kind of got lost in that, so I do apologise for that. Anyway, today's theme is British cars. Now I decided to choose British cars, one because I like them, and two because British cars have been a bit weird around our track. The Aston Martin DBS is fairly slow, while as the Real Emile V8 is at the top of our leaderboard. So I figured we would throw 7 of them round and see what would happen. The first car to go around today is a XKR-S, 406 horsepower, 2,377 pounds. I didn't think this thing was that light, but apparently it was. So the TVR, it looks very, very crazy, and to drive, well, it's very, very scary. The problem with this car is it felt like you wouldn't know if you was going through a corner, you wouldn't know if you was going to have grip or it was going to slide. Now, you could of course just throw caution to wind and pull handbrakes and go for big drifty sessions in it, but that's not conclusive to a very good lap time. So, yeah, the TVR as a track car, this is something that'll be quite common today as well. As a track car, the TVR isn't great, but as a thing to have some fun in and scare yourself silly with, yes, absolutely, the TVR is brilliant. I will say the brakes on this thing are absolutely superb. They get it stopped ridiculously quick, although because I've just found out how light this thing is, that would be why. There's also a very, very big tail slide through there, and a bit of sliding through the last corner. Next up we have, well, a 3-storey house. This is a Bentley Continental GT, 617 horsepower, 5,115 pounds. I'm pretty sure this is the W12 Speed model. Not the V8 that everyone says you should buy, but this is the W12. The Continental. Now, I will say this is actually a nice car to drive. That understeer, that'll come into something in a minute. But yeah, it's a pretty nice car to drive, the Continental. It doesn't feel scary like the TVR does. But nice doesn't necessarily mean fast. And this car has some pretty big issues, starting with, well, the weight and the size of the damn thing. Yeah, it's never gonna be a track car, is it? It's not exactly like a Lotus. And the other problem is this car has 4-wheel drive, which can be good. Again, it stops the tail sliding. But my god, there is so much understeer in this car. If you're slow through the corners, the understeer's fine. You know, there'll barely be any. But if you try and take a corner a bit too fast in this car, you will just go understeering off. And it just wasn't quick. I mean, this track is not suited to the Bentley whatsoever. You know, it's quite sort of, there's a lot of medium to high speed corners and stuff. It's not particularly great for that sort of car. Anyway, next up we have an Aston Martin Vanquish, 564 horsepower, 3,834 pounds. I absolutely adore this car. I've spoken about this car many times before. This is by far, at least in my opinion, the best looking car ever made. Prettier than an F-Type in my opinion. This thing is just so fantastic. But what's it like to drive? Well, it's pretty good, actually. I was kind of expecting this car to be a lot like the DBS. When we had the DBS, that car was fairly nice, but it was very heavy. But the Vanquish felt a lot lighter on its feet. It definitely feels much more lightweight than the DBS did. The tail does come out on this thing. It's not hard to encourage it to come out, as you can see through there. But it's, yeah, it's not quite as bad as, say, the Shelby GT500. You know, it's fairly well behaved. It's civilized enough. I guess, and this car suits the track much more than the Bentley did as well, so yeah, Vanquish was pretty good. Now here we have the Aston Martin 177, 749 horsepower from a 7.3 litre V12, 3,307 pounds. This is the surprise of the day. The 177, I've never actually really driven this car before in Forza. I don't particularly like it. I don't like the looks of it. And it's always been very expensive in these games, as in it's like 1.6 million in this game, I think. And for that price, you can have a McLaren P1 and the Maserati MC12. However, the 177 drives very, very nicely, actually. You wouldn't expect it, you know, 750 horsepower rear-wheel drive and so on. But it drives pretty damn well, the 177. It drives better than the Vanquish, which is very, very strange. And this car is also monstrously fast. It's just blows your mind with how quick this thing can be. It's, yeah, I don't like that little spoiler that raises out either, but yeah. 177 handled pretty damn nicely. It's nicer than the 458 Italia to drive. It's probably even nicer than the McLaren 12C. I definitely recommend giving the 177 a go, even though it is very, very steep on its pricing. Next up, we have a Jaguar XKR-S, 542 horsepower, 3,865 pounds. I love this car. It's so unbelievably silly. It makes a big superchargy whiny noise. It handles like a muscle car, and it's basically there just to have fun with. And this car is immense fun. I actually, after recording this lap, I went back out on track and ended up sliding it about a bit because it's just so much fun to do that. Again, it's not really the sort of car that's for racing seriously, and I kind of compare this car a lot to muscle cars. It very much is a muscle car. That's how it drives. It's got rear-wheel drive, it's very powerful, it's quite heavy, it's not particularly sophisticated, but yeah, it's it's a muscle car. It's good, honest fun. As far as to drive, as if you try and drive it normally, it can be done. It's much more tame than, say, the Shelby we had last week, but it's just, you can tell the car doesn't want to sort of behave itself. It wants to be very rowdy and so on, so yeah. Next up we have a McLaren F1. I couldn't leave this thing out. 627 horsepower, 2,840 pounds. The McLaren F1 is a damn legend. And, yeah, it didn't feel like it slid that much through that corner. That was really the way I sort of take that corner, is to basically slide the cars through it, just because it gets them round that corner faster. It sort of sets them up for a better run onto the first corner. The F1, I've driven this quite a few times now, and I really like the way this thing drives. It's very well behaved. The seating position as well is very strange. It's very much like an F1 car, actually. You feel like ridiculously low to the ground, and all you can see is sky because the window screen's big and everything. It's, yeah, but the car itself drives very, very nicely, apart from at Hammerhead. Now here at Hammerhead, I had some huge difficulty. Yeah, as you see there, that's what the car was doing. It just wanted to slide through that corner. Everywhere else on the track, this car was brilliant. It really was fantastic, but just for some reason through there, it didn't like it. My only other complaint as well is the gear ratios are very long, but this, of course, it was the fastest car in the world, so it kind of needs long gears to reach its top speed. But the F1 is pretty damn good. And finally, the aerial atom chaser. This is the McLaren P1, 903 horsepower, 3,296 pounds. Now, if the McLaren F1 feels like an F1 car when you sit in it, this car drives like an F1 car. I actually drove the Lotus E21 in a video very recently, and this car reminded me loads of it. You have to be so on it with this car, and it feels amazing to drive. You're like, the gears, you don't just sort of go me. It sort of is constantly at the red line, you're going change gear, so on. So yeah, this car is insane. It handles pretty damn well, actually, I've got to say. It does have some issues with sliding, but then again, it's a 900 horsepower hypercar, like a Koenigsegg Agera, I guess, in that sense. I think it's probably the fastest car we've ever had to take the Hammerhead. It was ludicrously fast through there. Through the tyres, it was doing about 140, down here about 160. The P1 was insane, but then again, what do you expect? It's also pretty nice to drive as well, so there you go. Anyway, onto the times, and the McLaren P1 finally knocks off the Ariel Atom to become the fastest car around our track with a 1:11.370, sorry. That beats the Atom by almost 1.5 seconds. Yeah, the P1 was very, very quick. Going down the board, we find the Aston Martin 177 in 12th with a 1:16.812, which is very, very good actually. Faster than the McLaren F1, which got a 1:17.056, which was faster than the Ferrari F40, Dodge Viper ACR, Ferrari 458, Dodge Viper GTS. There's some pretty big names there, and it beat them all, which is very remarkable. Also, the 12C was, yeah, that's a very fast car as well. Down the board, we find sort of the rest of the pack. We have the Vanquish going into 32nd with a 1:20.326, which is very good in my book. That beats an SLR McLaren and a Ford GT. Yeah, the Vanquish was very, very quick. I sort of wanted to push it into the 119s, but it just wouldn't do it. XKR-S 1:20.897, splitting, it's faster than a Corvette C7 Stingray, which is pretty good. And the Jaguar XKRS beats the Camaro ZL1, but is just a bit slower than a C7 Stingray. That surprises me actually, because I thought the XKRS would be slower than the Camaro. They're about the same PI, in fact I think they're exactly the same. And finally, in 41st, that's strangely hard to say, we find the Bentley Continental with a 1:22.847. Yeah, the track never really suited this car, but it is faster than a Corvette ZR1, an Audi RS4, 2015 Mustang, Aston Martin DBS, so that's pretty respectful. So there you go, guys. That was some British cars. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching. My name's been TheRealEmile. Next week, I'm not sure. So I want to thank you all very much for watching. My name's been TheRealEmile. Until next time, farewell.